Welcome to the Divine Advantage podcast, where we rediscover ancient truths for a prosperous future. Experience inspirational stories from values-based and impact-driven business leaders and educational content to empower you to build businesses with a heavenly advantage and change the world. Here are your hosts, Eric Skeldon and Brian Orm.
Good to see you, man. This is another episode of the Divine Advantage podcast. So today's exciting. We got a really cool guest with us, good friend. She is rocking it in real estate on the East Coast, Washington, D.C. area. I've known her for several years now, and she's just an amazing person that's bringing the kingdom into this space and very successful, has a large network that she's empowering and equipping. And so Bernadette Cole is with us today. I want Bernadette to come on, give us a little glimpse into who you are, what you've been doing, what you're passionate about. And then we're going to jump into a really fun, powerful conversation.
Come on, you guys. Get in, get ready, leave some comments on YouTube. Here we go. It's all about real estate and the kingdom. Come on, welcome, Bernadette. How are you doing?
Hi. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Brian. So excited to be here. Just to share a little bit about who I am and what I'm doing in the real estate world. I am a broker of 3 incredible real estate offices in the DC metro area. We have about 280 agents currently in those 3 brokerages. In addition to that, I'm a regional owner with Exit Realty, which basically means I have the franchise rights for the state of Virginia. So we have another 23 amazing brokerages in the state of Virginia. And I also sell, like, for anyone else who's interested in, owning or purchasing a franchise in that state. And then we support the brokers. So, and I also speak in the real estate arena at different events and for different organizations and do training as well. So absolutely loving what I do. And one of the things that really differentiates our brokerage from some of the others is that we are so involved in our community. We absolutely believe as business owners, all of our business comes from the community, and that relationship should be a back and forth. And so we absolutely believe in just giving back. It is so much of who we are. And also, it's become something that we're known for, even though that wasn't the intention. The intention just came from all of us starting to identify with who we are and what that looks like as an expression of our business. So thank you again for having me today.
Come on, it's amazing. So Bernadette, what was kind of the draw into real estate? And then as you've taken this journey, I mean, there's obvious, I know you, so I know there's a lot of favor in your life, but what's that kind of look like in your relationship with God as you begin to scale in the space of real estate, recognizing that there was a bit of a divine advantage going on?
Yeah. So when I was in college, I started taking, I was studying financial planning. So I had to take real estate course, like just the regular, like, real estate principles course. And when I took that course, I just really loved it. So I started taking all these extra courses for my electives, which a lot of people were like, what's the easiest thing I could take? Not me. I was like, I just love this real estate thing. But life happened, and we had children. My husband's military. We moved around. So it was really kind of difficult for me to get started just with what was going on in our lives. And so it was always, and again, I just believe it's because it was part of my design. It was always this thing that was in the back that, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do this thing. So finally, everything aligned, and that our children were at an age where, I could be away a little bit more and feel comfortable with that. We had just moved to the Washington, D.C. area. And so I had already been telling my husband for years and years and years that I was going to be doing this real estate thing. So when I knew we were going to be moving after our 3 years were up in Okinawa, Japan, I was just like, okay, wherever we go next, I am doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And that's exactly what I did. I got my license, and within a year and a half of having my license, I decided to open my first brokerage. And so I was a rookie agent, brand new to an area. And believe me, that the doubts would come into my head. But God kept giving me an image of what my real estate company would look like. I would see like this meeting room, and I would see like our meeting room. Like a lot of times in business, you would think like a boardroom, and that's how most real estate companies were designed at the time. But the meeting room I kept seeing looked like a living room. And it looked like we were sitting in someone's family room having coffee or tea and just having conversations. And it just felt so family oriented, and it just gave me this peace. And so I would always see this vision for that. And when we first started, I had a really hard time finding a location, and this vision that God gave me and what ended up being available were not in alignment. However, I was like, okay, I know I'm supposed to do this thing. And so I did. I went to a conference like in October, and I was like, 3 to 5 years from now, I'm going to open up a brokerage. And I got back from the conference, and somebody said, well, why aren't you doing it now? And I was like, oh, and I gave all the excuses because it's only been a year and a half. I'm new. Nobody knows me in this area. And the person asked me this question and said, oh, I said I needed experience as a broker. And she said, well, you could just hire a broker. And I was like, I could just hire a broker. So now what's stopping me? Because I was using that as an excuse. And I'm like, okay, God's given me this vision, this image of what it's going to look like. I know I'm supposed to do this. I'm recognizing that all of the positions I had, even moving around in the military, everything has prepared me for this moment. Why am I like using that as an excuse? So that was in October when I like went to this conference, decided I wanted to do this 3 to 5 years in the future. So that was October. January 1, I opened my doors for the first brokerage. And the space that we ended up in was not at all like the vision I was seeing. However, one day I was leaving that space, and this is so crazy because this space was in front of my eyes the whole time. There is a commercial building that was used as a residence like years and years ago, and it had been converted to commercial. So it had this gorgeous front porch, and it looked like a house, like a really just gorgeous Victorian kind of style. Actually, not really Victorian, but and it's like it was highlighted to me. And I was sitting at the traffic light. This is the route I took every day, and I don't know why before that time it didn't register with me. So it's highlighted to me, and I'm looking at it, and it almost feels like there's a spotlight on it. And I just knew like this is it. And so I called up the agent that was on it. I met him at the property. It is full of junk. It's dusty. It's dirty. And I am just like, this is it. This is it. I know this is it. And so we talked, we worked out a deal, and it had to be renovated. It had like a whole bunch of stuff that had to be done to it. But he gave me the front page of the plan, the blueprints. And so I went and bought like just like a big poster size frame, and I framed that, and I stuck it in the building that I told you didn't look like what I had in my vision. And I grew this office with being new to the area, being new to like a rookie to the business. I grew it to over 50 agents before we moved into our new space. And it is because the vision that God gave me was so clear, and I was able to communicate that to everybody that was coming in. So it's like they didn't even pay attention to the space that we were in. And just to tell you what that space looked like, it was in an industrial park. It had like a garage door on one side of it, and then it had a door where you'd come in. And before we moved in, they were doing vehicle wraps, car wraps in that space. And this was like our real estate office where we're handling someone's largest asset that they typically buy or sell. But it didn't matter. We were able to like grow and build in that space because everybody was focused on where we were going, and we all knew that we were going there together. So that's kind of how it all began. And since then, I've like during the recession did many acquisitions, and grew through, what some people call one of the worst recessions and worst real estate markets. We grew through that entire market. So
Wow, now come on, you guys. That's a divine advantage.
Yeah.
Let
yeah.
us know in the comments if you guys want a divine advantage in your business. But I want a divine advantage. Bernadette, you mentioned two things that are principles and keys I want people to realize. And I wonder why, I don't know why balloons just came off, but maybe God's
That's
celebrating your story.
Yes.
But two things you mentioned was one was family. Um, One was family. Like you guys made it really family oriented, and
Yes.
you guys made it super family oriented, and that's the kingdom principle because the kingdom is a
Yes.
family, right? There's a king, there's a kingdom,
Absolutely.
and we're entered into this family. We're co-heirs. So, and then two was vision. Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision down and make it
Yep.
plain. And that was something that really is God's been showing us how powerful vision is. Like if you don't have vision, our people perish. Um,
Yes.
and so you guys having that vision for, for even real estate that is like broken or not in the fullness. And that's really a picture of all of us. Like we're all like God is showing us the fullness and the capacity, the potential, but sometimes we don't see it ourselves yet. But then as people start speaking, calling out the gold as if it is, even though it's not yet, and we start actually walking in into that potential. So talk about those two things, family and vision,
Absolutely.
because I think those are just
Absolutely.
keys that we have to put in our business and in our life to really see those doors being open.
Yes, and family is such a kingdom strategy, and there's so many people out there like sometimes you don't even know that you're doing it, but um just the vision that I had, it felt like just family hanging out in the living room. And so I wanted to build that culture. And I've been in sales, like even prior to real estate, I was in sales in other industries. And I would say that that's something that a lot of times you don't experience. It becomes like sometimes it's a very competitive, and things get super focused on the numbers and who's winning. And there isn't a culture always of helping one another and wanting and helping to build other people up. And so we wanted to make sure that that was one of our core principles in the brokerage. And you will hear like I do a call every Monday morning. It's called Miracle Morning Mondays. And it was mentioned on the call today that it feels like such a family. We just did a trip together, and 40 plus people from our office went on the trip together. We we went together, we spent time together, we had dinner together, we hung out in the pool together. And again, that's really different than a lot of things that you see in business. But what it does is it creates this environment where we want to help one another. We truly care for one another. We start to see what people are going through. And I mean, one of the biggest compliments that I've ever received was we do a Thanksgiving potluck. And no matter how long it takes, we go around the entire room and everybody shares something that they're thankful for. And we had someone in our group who had been with us for a while, and she said, y'all didn't know this, but I was going through one of the most difficult times of my life. And I was going through a divorce, and I never told anybody. And the whole time I would come into the office, and I would come into the office to be around all of you because of the positivity and because I would feel good. And it helped her through this really difficult time. And, sometimes as family, it's like we know something's going on and we want to reach out and help. But also as family, sometimes you don't even know, but just by being you and having that as a core value, you end up helping people and you don't even know that you're helping people. And so To me, that's huge, to have an environment where people feel loved, where people feel valued, where they feel lifted, and that they feel if something's going on in their life, that they can just be in that place and feel loved and lifted. So family is huge, like just as a core principle, but also if you can apply that to your business and make that something that is important and find ways to express that in your business, it is an incredible kingdom strategy that, not only your business grows from it, but everybody around you is growing in ways that, a lot of times, like the way that we're taught in business, it's like you don't even understand how important the personal growth is. And everything has to be right with us a lot of times to be able to achieve and do the things that we need to do in business. And so having that is just an environment and atmosphere that promotes growth and also security. So,
So good.
yeah.
It's
And then,
interesting when I'm hearing this. My wife and I, when we went into going into full-time ministry, went to a Bible college, we were literally trained to not get close to people
yeah,
in that setting. And it's like what you're describing is the complete opposite. And it's powerful, it's kingdom.
yeah,
As you mentioned the vision piece, and I think this is a really important part of the journey because you're getting some divine data from God, right?
right,
And it's like the translation piece becomes really critical because this isn't like a Sunday morning service you're doing. This is a business.
right.
It's like the translation becomes really important. We've had conversations about, if we look at revival in the sense of there's spiritual experience data that's coming, how does that translate
Hmm.
into reformation?
Right.
Where we're taking something that's unseen, maybe nebulous, hard to define, but then using language and process to integrate it into whether it's a business like this or something else. What did that look like for you as far as communicating that vision
Hmm.
and then integrating it?
Okay. And that really is an ongoing process. That is like something that I'm constantly receiving, like just, little downloads and revelation, because like as I grow and build, it's like new things enter the picture. But at the beginning, um, the family thing was super important because like not only was I seeing this vision, I was feeling, and that was the only way I could describe what I was feeling. Like, and again, at this time, like now we see a lot more like kind of like co-work spaces that feel loungy, vibey, whatever. I'm doing this back in 2008 when that was not a thing. And I was being told that that is not a practical thing to do for business. And like people are talking like dollar wise square footage. You're going to take that much square footage when it could be this, which people were saying was income producing. And it's one of those things where even like when I was talking to like the people that were building it and doing the work, they were like, "You want to do what? You want to have like a coffee bar? This a real estate office? Like this doesn't make sense." Everything was very executive, very sterile, like traditional business feeling at the time, and I really had to like go back to the vision and knowing that what I was seeing and what I was feeling is what I was designed and created to build. Like this is part of, um, you're talking about reformation. This is part of reformation. This is part of like some of the things that we need in business to really change how things are being done. And I wasn't viewing it at that time, but I absolutely knew that what I saw was what I wanted to build. And so I would have to check back in because the doubts come in like, well, this person's done it before. This person's been doing it longer than me. And I did a lot of that where I kind of felt like, I don't know because this is all new for me. I don't have the experience. And I would try to like, sometimes I'd try to discount myself and I would have to go back and be like, nope, this is a vision from God. And he qualifies me. It doesn't matter what's on my resume. It doesn't matter. And then when I dug deeper with that, I started to understand I was prepared for this. Even if my experience was not in that industry, I didn't have the history there. I was prepared for this in everything that I did. And one of the things that was different about my resume was that I had sales management training when a lot of brokers, they've done the business, but they didn't have, like, being a sales manager, I was pulling people together, getting them to work together, and putting them on like a vision. Okay, this is what we're going to accomplish, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to go and we're going to do this together. And so I finally started to realize, and part of that was like really when I was having those doubts, it was like getting still and being really like, okay, I really need clarity. And I would always go back to that vision. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm building. And I would stick to that. So it was definitely a challenge, but also just, and it's been this thing like, as I go into anything new, because like, it's like, okay, now the brokerage is open, but then now what? What's next? And so as I've grown, one of the other things that I learned, and something that we do in the brokerage, is I started to have this feeling like I know there's more. Like everything's going great in the brokerage, but I'm like feeling this, okay, I know there's more. So what is this more? What does it look like? So I'll really start to lean in, because what I've learned is that when I start to feel that, and a lot of times when we feel that, we start to go outside of ourselves. Like, oh, I need to move, I need to switch, I need to make a change, I need to do like all these things that are outside of ourselves. And what I've learned in like having this happen multiple times is this is the time to go inside and to like start meeting with Father and being like, okay, I'm feeling this. So what is this next? It's an invitation. So, and really, that answer is not going to come from me doing all these external things. It's going to come from me like really connecting with my identity, my purpose, my design, and with the Father, to be like, okay, what is this invitation about? What is it? And so one of the things that happened for me is that it was to start adding other pieces of my design into my business. And for me, that was starting to do like anti-trafficking work with a fabulous organization that does work in Mexico City. And that also came from a dream. That's a whole other long story, but it was a dream first. I knew I was going there. 3 years later, it happened. But now it's like, here's another expression of me, how God created me to be, coming out in my business, because now my business has purpose and it's tied to my purpose. So now it's like, I want to go to this business every day. I want to be there because I know that my business has a purpose, and my business is going to be setting people free. And that I'm going to use what I'm making in this business to create experiences for these girls who've had the most awful things happen to them. I want to go and I want to love on them. I want them to know that they're loved. And I'm going to use my business to do that. Like, how happy are you to go to that business every day?
That's amazing. And I have some statistics I want to talk about with Latin America, and just like, I love that you brought up Mexico City, because God's been doing that with some purpose, with like Spanish and things that aren't even on my grid, like start like reaching Spanish culture and like your heritage with Latino culture and stuff. And so going to what you just said about oh yeah, just like success, right? So when I remember
Yeah.
when I was in corporate America, got a business degree, 3 years later of like figuring out sales, and that is one skill I do recommend everyone learn sales, and learn sales as a service. And we can go deeper into that later. But as you start reaching success in sales and in the business side only, and I remember doing millions of dollars in freight brokering, and or millions of dollars in revenue, and then just six figures and profit for the first time, and showing my dad, and at the time wanted to get validated, like, Dad, like, look at this, like I made $20,000 this month. And like, it was just crazy, because it's like I've never seen anything like that. And that's like the corporate ladder. They tell you, get a job, make six figures, and you're going to be happy. And I remember I was like still not happy. I was like still just, and my dad was like, I mean, he was kind of happy for me, like, oh, good job. But it was like, and then at the time I was just like, okay, well, that's not going to make me happy, because you have these goals sometimes in business. And I think this is a key, because as we think that that's going to satisfy us, like the revenue or the monetary, oh, $10 million company, $50 million, $100 million, or whatever, however much, like, you have the car, you have the house, but once you get the car or the house or the checks that come in, these big checks, they really never fill the void, right? That Jesus only can fill, and that
Yep.
like that relationship with the Father can only fill. And so
Yep.
I think that's, one thing I want to just share with you guys out there. God can give you keys, strategies, and principles to scale your business to the moon, to do millions of dollars, to have enough money to have the house that you always dreamed of. But sometimes, like, without that purpose and not without the identity piece, we're really kind of like in a place where it's like, okay, well, what is my heart, like, what is my business really should be, like you said, like you started bringing the purpose piece into it. And I remember that's where I started, is going like, I want to do more than just make six figures just moving trucks around and having these contracts to move trucks around of lumber and furniture. So talk about, Bernadette, some of the numbers you were even hitting in your guys' brokerage, and then even from there, like, go into purpose, like how even hitting these crazy numbers, because I mean, you guys have so many people. So as like it goes through, I mean, you guys are probably hitting crazy, breaking records, hitting crazy numbers. But then it's just like in the success, but then it's in the monetary. But then as you even dedicate that towards purpose, and like, hey, the more revenue we hit, we can actually know there's no nonprofit, there's no board telling you what to do with the your overflow. You can go fund as many orphanages, you can go save as many kids as you want because of the what you generate.
Right. Yeah. So we are like, there's a company that like, takes all the real estate companies and ranks us. And for the last three, might even be more now, we've been top 1.5% in the nation in what we do, in our brokerages. And that's based on like the number of transactions that we're doing. So, and, like I said, throughout the 2008 recession, I was growing and I was acquiring companies. I did a 50-person acquisition and added an additional location. We tripled the size of that company to like 150 agents. And a lot of this was happening like when, people are like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, and so, I always tell people, I feel like we didn't participate in that recession. And I was new, and I never had the mindset that, like people would say things about the market, and I was always like, well, there's opportunities. And that's the thing, is that there are always opportunities in any market. And um tell me, Eric, tell me the question again, because I kind of got off
Even
track.
on more like, just like, yeah, like as you guys are tripling, you guys are acquiring,
Oh,
tripling stuff, and
the
even like,
production.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
the production, but then even going to, I guess, the purpose, like as
Yes.
you like
Yes.
Jim
Yes.
Carrey
Yes.
has
Yes.
a quote. He's like, I wish everyone could just get millions of dollars and have everything they've ever wanted, and then find
Yes.
out that that will never make them happy, because a lot of people are
Right.
chasing, oh, if I only had this, if I only had $1 million, if I only got 10 million, I'd be happy. But then they hit it, and they find out it never actually makes them happy.
It's so true. Yes, yes, and that's so true, and it's actually one of the things that we talk about all the time, is that, like, part of that, like, just, like, hitting all these numbers is, like, yes, it feels great when you hit the numbers and you go celebrate, but then all it is you get a new number and a new target, and there's nothing here that's, like, inside of you that is fulfilled in that. And you get that sense of accomplishment, and to me, it's like true level of success. And that's probably not the best word for it, but what it is that I can do all of that, and it means nothing if I'm not doing what I was put on this earth to do. And I don't know, like, being like a, you know, treasurer, or being like a minister of finance for the kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of us are generated to, create wealth, to create money. But the thing is, we have to steward that. And that includes investment. And the biggest investment is investing in people. And so, one of the things as a business owner, and, again, like so many of these things, it's like, I don't always know the strategy going in. I'm getting like hints and, I'm just like, okay, that's the step I need to take. Take the step. And then I start to have this like realization of, oh my goodness. So I started doing it for me, like, because I was feeling it. And then that became, well, all of us have a purpose and a destiny. So now, how do I start talking to these hundreds of agents or thousands of agents or tens of thousands of agents that I'm speaking to about this? And now it becomes not just me, but it's multiplied, and more people are starting to walk in their destiny. So what has come out of that is I have agents who have started nonprofits that are feeding the homeless, that are raising funds for all these different organizations. We're bringing food into our community, and that's being distributed. That started with one organization, now it's with multiple in multiple counties. And so it is multiplied. And so there is like obviously the direct benefit to everybody that's receiving that. But even greater than that is that people are discovering their identity, their purpose, connecting that to their business, and then it's multiplying, and then they become examples for other people to see. And it just goes on and on. And that's how things change. So, but a lot of times you're right. People chase what they feel is empty. And that's what I was saying about we start looking at all these things outside. We also, like when you're in sales and you know that you can make things happen, you start chasing sometimes that high of, oh, I'm going to hit this goal. I'm going to do better than anybody else. I'm going to, and there is like, there is a gift and a skill in that, your ability to do that, but it is out of proportion when you're doing it just to do it. You're given that gift to be able to harness it and be able to turn it into something that multiplies. And the only way that happens again is when you are where you're meant to be, you're working in your purpose, you're working in your destiny, and you're starting to steward others.
Come on. Those of you watching, listening, I hope you're catching this. When there's a purpose attached to what you're building, there's increase and multiplication because God is watching how you steward things, the fruitfulness, the provenness. I love that. It's amazing. All right, Bernadette, we've got to talk about, because there's so much noise out there, talking about real estate, where we are in the macro environment.
Yes.
And if you're watching this later on, this is October 2023. But we've got people calling that we're going to see the biggest housing crash in history. It's going to be similar to 2008. It's, unprecedented. We're hearing all these pieces of information, when it comes to real estate, when it comes to the stock market, the bond market, people are freaking out. This is your world, obviously. What are you seeing? What are the trends that you're seeing? And how has this impacted what you've done and how you've done it?
Yeah. So, yeah, what the media is saying is so different from what all of us are experiencing in the market. So, there are definitely some challenges to this market. And again, that's all markets. Like, no matter what's happening, there's like one side that's going to, where it's more favorable. And there's another side where, okay, it's not the best time to do that thing. And so, right now, our biggest challenge is the lack of inventory. This is so different from 2008 because we were flooded with inventory. We had foreclosures saturating the market. We had developments with like empty homes, but there's been a series of things that have happened that have basically created a scarcity and inventory, and none of it is like a quick fix. And so we have people that, that we have this conversation with the agents all the time. They're talking about how they're going to wait, they're going to wait, they're going to wait. And it's like, wait for what? For the prices to like keep going up? Because if there's a lack of inventory, guess what happens with the prices? The interest rates have gone up, and there's been so much talk in the media about how high they are, when really it's because we're comparing it to when they were historically low. But if you look at the market, I mean, some of us, like our parents, our grandparents, they were buying at a 15% interest rate, and the rates are really not, you know, astronomically high like it's being portrayed in the media. And so what that's created is a lot of people who have like lower interest rate, they don't want to sell. You've got people that are afraid to buy because of the interest rate. Things can always be refinanced later, and it's if you wait, you have all these other buyers that are waiting. So would you rather like buy now, or would you rather wait with a bunch of other people that are waiting out of fear, and then everyone enter the market when we still have a lack of inventory? So it's it's the inventory thing again. There's so many opportunities with that. There's so many opportunities. Like, commercial is changing, like a lot of people are working from home, so we're seeing like a difference in how like commercial is being done. There's a lot of talk about converting like mall space and like empty office buildings, and like as some of that gets converted to housing, so like for our investors, there's opportunity there for like some of these creative solutions to this lack of inventory. So again,
Very
there's like
good.
all sorts of opportunities there, but the biggest thing that we see right now is really a lack of inventory, and straight economics. If the demand is high and the supply is low, that's going to affect our prices.
Yeah,
So
I put a quote down there. Dr. Miles Monroe used to always talk about, like, in different, like even Asian cultures, they don't see the word crisis, they see opportunity. And just want to declare that for everyone listening. Even when you do see some stock market, or we see some corrections, because maybe we haven't seen a correction and a bigger correction. With the stock market, I feel like already has had a pretty good correction, and we've seen it in
yeah.
stock market. Crypto has gone down about 80%, 90 up to 90% on a lot of cryptocurrencies. So we have seen some corrections in quite a few industries, and so, yeah, but we have basically opportunity instead of crisis. And I want to even, like, I've been seeing trends of people doing Airbnbs, people getting these like little warehouses or unique Airbnbs in different ways. And you talked earlier about creative solutions, and that's what,
Mhm.
when you have the mind of Christ, you can bring creative solutions. You can, if someone that has a building they're not using, or maybe they have a building they're not using, you can even talk to the seller and be like, hey, I have this creative idea. What if we did this? What if we did that? You can actually come to people that can't rent out a building, because commercial, I think due to COVID and all these other things, people are working from home. I know me and my staff, we work from home. We're streaming this to pray.com. Shout out to pray.com. A lot of their staff, they also started figuring out a decentralized, like distributed, working remote. And that's even with a company that's raised 34 million, and it's a big company. And so many organizations are no longer needing these huge buildings, huge rent, when you can work and have project management tools and systems. So there's going to be a lot of creative solutions, I think, for retail. Can you talk about retail and how I feel like there is going to be, just kind of a shift ever since the whole work from home movement is really rising?
Yeah, I have seen like and heard like there's symposiums and stuff, like again talking about creative solutions, and instead of like retreating and being like, oh, this is really bad, I'm gonna like sit here, watch Netflix and wait for it to pass, you could be part of these many, many discussions. I know in a lot of markets, they're adding like ADUs, like, so you might have like where you put a smaller unit in your backyard for like extended family. We're seeing a lot more of like generational stuff. But as far as like the malls, I've seen some really cool ideas on turning that into like senior housing, where they have all the services in the mall that they need. So now you've got like the doctor's office, the dentist's office, like all of the things are in the community. Plus, you've got like the housing. So I've seen some really cool ideas for that. You were just talking about the people working from home. So a lot of people have taken their commercial space and they've found ways to rent out like some of the private offices that they're no longer using to people who are working from home. However, they occasionally have to meet people. And so they need a meeting space to meet them, or they need a conference room. So they're renting out conference rooms. They're renting out like lounge spaces. They're renting out the things that I can't have in my home. Or sometimes it's like I have kids at home and there are times where I need to go, I don't need to go to the office every day, but there's certain times that I might have meetings where I can't, where I either need to meet with people or I can't, I can't have the distraction with like on a meeting or whatever. So they're providing spaces. And so they're taking these spaces that aren't being used because they're also have a bunch of people that are working from home and repurposing them. So we are starting to see, like you said, a lot of vacancies um, in the commercial world. Like, I mean, I'm in the DC metro area and I remember what traffic was like pre-COVID. And now when I have to like, I'm still programmed sometimes to be like, oh, let me time it around the rush hour. It's not the same anymore because people are not commuting in and out of the city. So that's also affecting, like, some people are able to move farther out, so that's affecting affordability. And then you have like with the senior, we're seeing a lot more multi-generational again. And so the ability to move out where you're able to get more land, you're able to get more space. We're seeing some of that as well. So there's just, like I said, there's just so many opportunities. The other thing is like we're seeing that, people are waiting on, this is like on the residential side, when there's a demand for rentals. You might be able to rent that place out, keep your low mortgage, cash flow it, and then go ahead and get that property before prices go any higher. Always, like I said, refinance it later. But that cash flow can be used to qualify you for that next one. Some people are thinking like, I got to get rid of that one to move on to the next one. There are ways to buy down rates. The solutions, the opportunities are endless in this market. Unfortunately, the news just wants to tell us everything that's wrong. And that's the stuff that gets repeated, is all the stuff that's wrong. But there's so much incredible opportunity out there right now.
There's a lot of Debbie Downers out there, right?
Unfortunately, yes. But we can be a voice for the opposite side of that. So,
Well, I
you
think
know,
it's coming to what's trending in the world versus what's trending in heaven are two very different
yeah,
things.
yeah.
And there's just always opportunity. What would you say to someone who's, I've thought about becoming a realtor, but with where the market is, quote unquote, what they're being told, this maybe is not a good time to jump into that. What would you say to that person?
um, so I was that person that the market was, and I jumped like head first, and it kind of worked out okay for me. But the, I would say that, like, we were just talking about all of the opportunities. There are opportunities in every market. There is no good time or bad time to get in real estate. The best time is like if you're thinking about it and you're being drawn to it and it's your time. I wouldn't listen to that. If I had listened to that, I wouldn't be where I am right now. That would have been a long wait if I didn't start in 2008 when I had the dream and I had the vision for it, because that was a long time before we recovered from that. But what ended up happening is I built an amazing base for my business. And there were a lot of people who chose that time to exit the business. And we were able to partner to come up with a solution that was a win-win, where they were able to get out because some of them just didn't want to, ride that out. And so, like, the one thing I've learned about timing, and as entrepreneurs, and most of the time, if you want to be a realtor, you've got you're designed to be an entrepreneur because we're basically in business for ourselves. We're independent contractors. Um, our timing is heaven's timing, and that timing is like always on time, and it's always the right time. And so, I mean, there's so many times where you will hear an entrepreneur say, um, like, oh, everybody said do this, and I chose to do that, you know? And it's because we have that inner guidance built into us. So, again, heaven's time, kingdom time is always on time. And um, I wouldn't let the world like giving you all these problems stop you, because again, there are always opportunities, and there's always work to be done in the kingdom. And if that's your call, let's go.
Let's go. Come on.
Yeah.
Bernadette, for people who want to, build wealth in real estate, they just know that even whether they don't want to be like a full-time realtor or
Yeah.
investor, but then, what would be your advice for people to just like understand like that one, and even why that real estate is like the number one, way that people have minted, basically become minted millionaires through building wealth through real estate. And just some tips for people, like if you were to go back and say, whether it's house hacking and buying a duplex and renting out the other side, or
Yeah.
bigger pockets and like learning wholesaling, like there's all these ways to like entry level to even get some
Hmm.
investment deals or serve people, investors. And that was really what opened my head, was like Rich Dad Poor Dad, or learning about the Real Estate Millionaire Investor by Gary Keller, or One Thing, or he has a book on like doing one thing, and by Gary Keller. And it was just like so many real estate books that really changed my mind. I was like, wow, like
Yeah.
kingdom people need to understand about kingdom wealth. And I actually somehow like God put me in a place where I want to do a second edition, and you have to be a part of it. But God had me curate a book called Kingdom Real Estate Secrets. It's a
I
best-selling
saw
Amazon
that.
book, and yeah, I want you to
Yeah.
contribute and like do like a part two or like a second, because I really feel like God is doing some sort of great wealth transfer, and it's not just always going to come through mailbox money, but it's going to become through the things we're partnered with, the things we're connected with, the things we're positioned ourselves with, whether it's owning real estate, partnering with companies, consulting for equity, ways that we're partnered and we're positioned, whether it's even through the blockchain where we're connected and we're getting divine airdrops. So I know that was a lot, but just keys on building wealth with real estate. Last call.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. And there's that could be a whole another episode, because there's so many ways to do that. But I mean, I think step one is owning your own home, you know. So um, you know, generational wealth is built from home ownership. Like you can see in the past, in our history, that generational wealth comes from like typically home ownership, owning land, owning buildings, owning real estate, basically. And so step one is, if you don't own your own home, is looking into that, what would need to happen, because you're paying somebody's mortgage. It might as well be yours. The other thing is, home ownership allows you tax advantages that renting does not. And it's the same thing when you start to buy properties, buying multiple properties, those become businesses with one of the most favorable um, tax implications as opposed to any other type of business. There's so many things that are designed for people that own properties that they're able to deduct as part of maintenance. So not only are you like, do you have something that is constantly appreciating? And if it's financed, that's going down, but you get to write off the interest on that. We could go on and on and on, but I would say number one, if you don't own already, that should be your first step. Eric, one of a great thing to do is like when you're just getting started is if you could get like a duplex where you can live in one half and rent out the other half. That is an amazing thing, because then part of your mortgage is paid. Um, and again, like even what we were saying, like you become the bank, like as you have these properties and they're paid off, you're your own bank at low interest rates. So we could totally do a whole nother episode on that
Yeah, let's
because
definitely do another
there
one.
is
Yeah,
there are
come on.
so many things about that. But I would say start with your own home, and then before you sell that home, you may want to look into when you're doing the move up, you may want to look into, depending on your situation, um, keeping that as an investment property as you level up into the next home, or, once things are paid off, buying some additional homes, a second home or rental home.
So good.
Awesome.
Bernadette, where
Yeah.
can
So
people um, follow you for more? And we're going to do a next one. I know some of you guys want to be your own bank, and you can do that through owning an assets like real estate.
Yes. So the best way to get my contact information is to text exit landmark to 85377. And there's no spaces in that. Exit landmarks just run together. That'll send you all my contact information. But I'm also on Facebook and I'm on Instagram at Bernabee29. So,
nice.
Well,
yes.
So those of you that have watched this, listen to this, some key takeaways that I grabbed were you ran full force into an opportunity when everyone said the sky is falling. In a specific industry where the sky was falling, you ran into it. You had a vision, you had divine data from God, you ran with that. You built purpose around what you're building monetarily so that there's an outflow into changing the world. And as a result, things have increased and multiplied. And now others are taking the same thing you've modeled and doing it through their own nonprofits, their own causes. Sounds a whole lot like the kingdom to me.
Yes.
So
And
much.
even added to that, I've had 9 of the people that started with me as agents go out and open their own brokerages,
Mm,
and they have the same heart. They're pouring into their communities, they're building people. And so, like, not just the people that were there, we're also having other companies come out of just, running with the kingdom.
amazing. Well,
Yeah.
if you're anywhere in the East Coast, you got to connect with Bernadette. And even if you're not, follow her. She's got great, amazing perspective on not just real estate, many things kingdom. So, Bernadette, thanks so much for taking time. We know you got a lot going on. You got multiple brokerages, deals you're making, and changing the world. So, we really appreciate it.
Yes, I appreciate you both. Thank you so much. This was a fun conversation. So,
Yeah.
Round two, be your own bank, coming soon. Make sure you guys subscribe. Thank you so much, Bernadette. You guys, we're super thrilled to be bringing you some of these kingdom entrepreneurs who are really stewarding God ideas, vision, team, technology, talent, and they're scaling their businesses and they're creating massive impact, fighting sex trafficking, funding orphanages, funding missions, and it all can be done through your business. So we want you to know that if you are a business operator, that you are anointed for business and ministry, and you are able to do ministry through the business, through going live on Facebook, going live. You don't have to be a pastor or be behind a pulpit to preach the gospel. You could bring the good news to your staff, to your company, and wherever you go. So just know that God has positioned you and purposed you, and for such a time as this. Last thoughts, Brian?
Last piece is make sure you subscribe to our newsletter, Divine Advantage. You can go to the show notes, click on that link. You'll get world-class content once a week in your inbox. It will be incredible to help you build, scale businesses to the measure of God. Come on. So check that out. Thanks again, Bernadette. Good to see you, Eric.
thank you.
All right.
Peace,
Shalom, everyone.
everybody.
See you guys on the next one.